Okay, what we're going to talk about here today is the credit score components. In other words, what components go into making up a credit score. So the credit score gives creditors an indication of whether or not a person is a good credit risk. And so what we want to find out here is what actually goes into making that credit score what it is. And as you can see by the pie chart, there are basically 5 components that go into making up that credit score. The first component, which is a very large component and the most important, is your payment history. So if you receive a loan or credit card or any type of credit that reports to the credit agencies, the most important aspect of that is really going to be whether or not you pay it on time. If you pay it on time, you're going to get credit for that. If you don't pay it on time and you consistently have late payments of 30 days late or more, it's going to have a drastic negative impact on your credit score, because that particular section, the blue section, takes up 35% of what goes into making that credit score. So it's very important that when you do obtain credit, that you pay it on time every month, and you never let your credit score, your credit, go more than 30 days past due on any account. So that's a very important piece. Your payment history makes up 35% of your credit score. The next most important piece is what we call the debt utilization ratio. What this essentially is when you receive a credit card or a line of credit, so this involves revolving debt, not student loans or auto loans or mortgages per se, but when you get a credit card or a line of credit that has a certain limit on it. Let's just say you received a Visa card that has a limit of $3,000 on it. Well, the limit is $3,000, and let's just say you have a balance of $1,500. So your debt utilization ratio on that particular card is going to be 50%, because you've taken up 50% of the total available credit of that particular credit card. Now, if you were to have 6 of those credit cards and each one of them had a balance or had a limit of $3,000, you'd have a total of $18,000 available to you in credit. If you had $9,000 used, then you would still have that 50% ratio. The whole idea here is to use as little of that credit as possible, and especially try to keep it about 25% of your total available credit and below. So if you have a $4,000 limit, you want to keep that card at $1,000 or lower in order to not have it be a negative towards your credit score. So that's called your debt utilization ratio, and that is a huge part of what goes into making up your credit. If you are accumulating a lot of debt and you start to get up into the 70, 80, 90% range of that debt utilization ratio, you will see a dramatic change in your credit scores, and it will go down. So it's very important that you use your credit wisely and do not overextend yourself in terms of that. Just because you have that limit doesn't mean you should be using it. Alright, the next component is what we call the average age of your credit file. This really is when you started to get credit to the now, right up to this point in the timeline. So if you received a credit card back 10 years ago, that's when your credit file would start, is 10 years ago. So the reason why that's important is because the credit models have a long period of time where they can look back and see. If you have a very short period of time, in other words, you just received a credit card 6 months ago and it was your very first item of credit that's actually reporting to it, you're not going to get the benefit of the highest possible score, because the computer models are going to, in a sense, penalize you because you are new to the credit game and you have not established enough history for them to be able to determine whether or not you are a good credit risk or not. So the longer you've had credit and the better you've used it, the better your credit score is going to be. This isn't necessarily something that can or should be manipulated. It's something that happens naturally as you start to acquire credit as you're growing, really as you're growing up. So the next part would be your credit mix. It's important that you have a good mixture of credit items on your credit. The best credit mix would be to have one mortgage, have 1 to 2 installment loans, which would be student loans or auto loans, those types of things. and to have 2 to 3 major credit cards that are all reporting to your credit. That's a good solid mix. And if you have that mix, you're going to get the best possible credit scores so long as you're using your credit wisely. If you only have credit cards and you don't have a mortgage and you don't have an installment loan, you're not going to get the full benefit of added points to your credit score because you don't have a good credit mix. And the same would be true if you only have an auto loan and you never have a credit card or anything like that. So people tell me, hey, I don't want to have credit cards, I think they're bad. Well, yeah, I understand that, but the truth is you need credit cards to get maximum credit scoring through the credit models. It's an unfortunate thing, but it is true. And then lastly, 5 to 10% of your credit score is going to be made up of credit inquiries. Now, an inquiry is when a potential creditor, it could be a insurance company or an employer, those types of things, but usually it's a potential creditor, somebody who you are asking to give you a loan or a credit card. It's when they inquire about your credit history or your credit scoring or your credit score. When they do that, it's called an inquiry on your credit. And when you get a lot of inquiries in a short period of time, the credit models read that as you are seeking to acquire debt. And so they temporarily penalize you for seeking after additional debt. Now, if you're only going after one item, or if you're only going after one account, you're just trying to get a mortgage or you're just trying to get an auto loan, that's fine. And you actually have some time to shop for both a mortgage or a car. So you could get 2 or 3 inquiries in a short period of time within a 30-day span of time if you are looking for a mortgage, and it's not going to hurt your credit. It'll only count as one. However, if you're applying for 3 credit cards, an auto loan, and a mortgage all at the same time, then it is going to have a negative impact on your credit score, but it usually makes up about 5 to 10% of your actual credit. So those are the 5 major components that go into making up a credit score. I hope that helped, and this has been sponsored by MNCreditInfo.com. Go ahead and check it out and get a free report at MNCreditInfo.com. I hope it helped.